This is Dr. Justin Agnieszka Chevalier. This last video in solving those cases includes the further details on that field situation. It can be actually done with paintball type of guns, and in dynamics it's supposed to not end in violence. Remember that never optimal action includes something that results in fear, anger, or in hostility. Right direction of action always results in dissipation towards good emotions for all. And so that is where to take action, and when using judgment in determining what is wrong, what is right, include such statement: sex is source of children. There is no other purpose of sex. That's it. Intimacy is asexual and secondary to such intentional seriousness of sex. And determine then into person who wants to, in reciprocity, as greatest life desire based on basic instinct, have sex, exclusive love, is the one who has natural right in proportion to the exact same physical state in reciprocity of that opposite gender person. And then determine who pursues such and does not, against own resistance, block it while preventing others from pursuit of such serious relationship to obtain money, labor, restriction of freedom, violence, or appearances that that person is sick or mentally ill, especially when pursued or pursuing another person, that that person is in some way a drug addict, blaming on wine or another sources love, that person that rumors or such that is infertile or gay. Impede that because that is wrong morally. And give always support to the person who is serious, and if person does not specify that verbally in explicit plain language, and does not base it on bodily impressions consistent with emotional state, consistent with the elation in knowing about explicit sexual state to have children and bond for life, in that other person having a child is being together for life and creates a lasting bond in the degree of mutual sexual desire, pleasure from that, and love. So it's not that easy, okay? And so determine that in one continuum, mind and body. And then whoever it is that, against the volition of two, one of them prevents marriage, declaration to others of that relationship as serious, official, and dignified. In such relationship, be it sexual or asexual, impedes sexual activity wanted one by two, using such to woo others or con others in non-specific way, like singing for all or dancing for all, for gain, also provides appearances of being in love when the love in reciprocity to that person consists of not feeling elation in being desired by that man. What does this mean? It means that that woman is forced, masks, dressed, prevented from living restricted in space, or beaten up, when she is deriving serious, intentional, loving pleasure from being pursued emotionally and sexually to form lasting relationship in violence. And never mistake sex for trivial, because sex is again source of children versus pursuit of relationship that has high potential of violence, that is asexual, and when pursued, at least one of those persons has to pursue violence or has to pursue a sexual relationship to be able to stand it. It can be only asking for abortion persistently. It can be incapacity to have an orgasm persistently, so, or a state of physical disgust to pregnancy products of that man. There are various things that compose that, and that is 4-2 dynamic of 2, and it's permanent, and it's called lesser than ideal natural right, and causes social harm. So observe for persons volition expressed in elation, joy, when the other one is desirous, and that is to pursue child and explicit as such, and therefore manifested in pride to all, source of dignity if reciprocated, and protect that to happen, and that is regardless of professional or personal nature of that relationship and marital statuses, as well as with after post-puberty, regardless of age. And that is not possible, and listen to me carefully, in children. There is no backwards love. So also you need to know, when you know for sure that the person has instinct to fight when approached for even tenderness or sex, instinctive one, unable to stand it, or hide when sexually observed, or is indifferent as in incompassionate allowance, and when that person would pursue, would fight, that person is not in source in such state in another person's love or declaration or anything, or mental state. That person is in such in own standards, in possession of understanding, that the person that is pursuing such has to outmatch in loving her all of males if it's a female, and if it's a male, all of females in love with that man, in loving that person, outmatch in goodness, in provision, in exclusiveness, pursuit of exclusiveness, to win that competition, in intentional actions to enable desire. When it comes to desire, that is derived from that love. So the answer to the second case, that was Lucia and I think Nathaniel, the second case in which that was, and there was also this competition in which persons, there's a beauty parlor, and a gentleman asks specifically, being a single man, to have women compete for the role of a maiden of his preference. Resolution of that was provided in that book, so that's why I didn't discuss it. Resolution of that is such: if cordiality, meaning allowing a person of same gender, let's say I and Lucia, we are both competing in dancing, singing, in parlor, of attention, or what's called chastity belt, so lifelong devotion of a person named Daniel. Right? And we compete, and I then seemingly in professional appreciation and in many other ways win over. I'm the best dancer. But at the same time, Lucia loves him more. meaning she actually loves him in desirous way because he couldn't stand waiting to the resolution of that competition and run to her house and try to, for instance, enter, and she in shame just kissed him and that's it. I cannot, even if I win all of the competitions, offer to that man desire if he desires someone else, because I will feel hurt that he went there, for instance, and that he pursued another female based on what is source of children. I will feel less attractive, and he will be prone to calling me old or prone to criticizing me in characteristics of which another person will, younger or older, rejoice as me being distinguished or beautiful. And that is then to establish also in love. If on the other hand he went there but he wanted only, for instance, to fondle her, and that was not serious and she rejected him or not, then pursuit of such relationship, if he in fact cherishes and loves me above all others, is also not natural. So if I then say, oh, that's fine, Daniel, just go and marry Lucia and have sex because you prefer her. And he says, well, I do, but I just don't want any children with her. And that's because, if I actually would have sex with her, I would think about you. Or I would abuse her, even worse, or ask her to impersonate you to be able to, with closed eyes, do her. And see, that is when I cannot say, oh my goodness, that is such a fantastic idea then, that you actually pursue her because I'm a good friend of her. So now I feel hurt and I'm gonna cry, but in own goodness and sacrifice I will say, no, do not ever consider me. Go for Lucia. I am perfectly fine with it. Cry a little bit and say, Lucia is the prime dancer. She's much more attractive. And then they two marry, and that forms those based on primal instinct or sexuality classes. Which means I then pursuing, for instance, a monastic life or someone else, am a phony. Why am I a phony? Because I made a fake sacrifice in rejection of a person that in immaturity separates sex and love. And if I did that to befriend that woman, then I am source of condescension and not friendship. Rivalship in dignity is when no one is hurt. So I don't sit in some monastery and think, oh my gosh, but if Daniel, if he could only kiss me, that would be awesome, while he's married to her because she's younger and greater at dancing, and he only, no problem, can have sex, but he will donate her sperm and she will take just some sort of an injection, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, in vitro will determine to withstand that pregnancy in profound disgust that he is a horrifying, cheating, this and that. That is not genius sacrifice. So that is why it needs to be true to self and seek where there is no harm in such a resolution. For example, I will give you an example. In friendliness to Lucia, if I most of the day, like I've described in prior tools, and also most of the nights, dream or visualize having sex, marriage in such profound ecstasy about such Daniel, and she won all dancing and singing competitions, but she is being verbally abused, and I then derive from that sense of profound hurt and injustice, and in, for instance, condescension, offer her food because he does not also provide for her, I am also a triple phony and not a social worker. That is not the case for me, at least for now.